A black doctor offers life-saving help during a mid-flight medical crisis, only to be dismissed by a flight attendant who assumes he can't possibly be a real physician. When his true identity is revealed, the consequences shake everyone aboard, and the airline itself. The cabin pressure held steady at 35,000 feet, but something else was breaking. A man in seat 14C lurched forward. His coffee cup clattered to the floor. His wife screamed, a sharp animal sound that cut through the hum of engines and hushed conversations. "Someone help! Please, someone help!" Passengers turned. Phones lowered. A flight attendant in a pressed Navy uniform hurried down the aisle, her heels clicking against the floor. She reached the man just as his body went slack, head rolling against the headrest. "Sir? Sir, can you hear me?" Her voice climbed higher with each word. From 3 rows back, a deep voice cut through the chaos. "I'm a doctor. Let me through." The attendant's head snapped toward the voice. A black man stood in the aisle, calm despite the panic around him. He wore a charcoal sweater and jeans. No white coat, no badge, just steady eyes and open hands. She hesitated. Her gaze flicked from his face to his clothes, then back again. "I need a doctor," she said into her radio, voice tight. "Is there a doctor on board?" "I just told you, I'm a doctor." He stepped closer. She raised one hand, palm out. "Sir, please return to your seat." "We're handling this." The man's jaw tightened. Around them, passengers exchanged glances. Whispers began to spread like wildfire. "Hey, where are you from? Drop your country in the comments below. And if this story already has you hooked, hit that like button and subscribe. You won't believe what happens next." His name was Dr. Marcus Reed, though the flight attendant would learn that too late. At 42, Marcus had performed surgeries that made headlines, advised presidents, and built a career most physicians only dreamed of. Surgeon General of the United States, a title that carried weight in boardrooms and hospitals, but apparently not here, 35,000 feet above Indiana. He'd boarded this flight in Denver after a conference on healthcare disparities. Irony wasn't lost on him now. His daughter Zoe, 8 years old with her mother's smile and his stubborn chin, had hugged him at the gate. "Be safe, Daddy, help people." He always did. It was woven into him like muscle memory. Marcus had grown up watching his mother work double shifts as a nurse in Detroit. She'd taught him that healing wasn't just about knowledge. It was about showing up, about being steady when chaos came knocking. He'd carried that lesson through medical school, through residency, through every emergency room and operating theater. But today, in this aluminum tube slicing through clouds, his credentials meant nothing. The flight attendant, her name tag read Jennifer, was young, maybe 26. She knelt beside the unconscious man, fingers fumbling for a pulse she clearly didn't know how to find properly. Her face had gone pale, sweat beading at her temples. Marcus knew the signs. Panic masquerading as control. Behind him, a woman whispered to her husband, "Why won't she let him help?" The husband didn't answer. He didn't need to. Marcus had been here before. Not on a plane, but in versions of this moment scattered across 42 years. The doctor who got stopped by hospital security. The surgeon whose credentials were questioned in his own operating room. The professional asked if he was sure he belonged in first class. He was sure. He'd always been sure. But sureness didn't seem to matter when Jennifer looked at him and saw something other than what he was. "Is anyone here a medical professional?" Jennifer's voice cracked over the intercom. Marcus stood again. "I already told you, sir, I need you to sit down." Her tone had shifted. Not just dismissive now, defensive. "You're interfering with an emergency procedure." A man in seat 8A stood up, white, silver-haired, wearing a polo shirt and khakis. "I'm a dentist. I can help." Jennifer's face flooded with relief. "Yes, thank you. Please come here." Marcus felt the plane tilt beneath him, though nothing had changed in the air, just his perception of gravity, of fairness, of being seen. The dentist hurried forward, squeezing past Marcus without meeting his eyes. He knelt beside the unconscious passenger, pressing 2 fingers against his neck. "Pulse is weak," the dentist said. "We need to lay him flat." Jennifer nodded rapidly. "Should we give him water?" "Loosen his collar?" Marcus bit down on the words rising in his throat. This wasn't water territory. This was cardiac event territory. Possibly stroke. Minutes mattered, and they were being wasted. Around him, passengers stared. Some looked confused. Others looked away, uncomfortable witnesses to something they didn't want to name. A teenage girl in the row behind Marcus whispered to her mother, "Why didn't they let the black guy help?" Her mother shushed her. "Quiet, quick." The sound of discomfort being swallowed, Marcus's phone buzzed in his pocket. A text from his chief of staff. "Landing in D.C. soon? Senate hearing prep tomorrow," he almost laughed. Tomorrow he'd be testifying before Congress about healthcare access. Today he couldn't access a patient 3 feet away. The unconscious man's lips were turning blue. Oxygen deprivation. The dentist looked up at Jennifer, uncertainty flooding his face. I think we need real help here," the dentist admitted. Jennifer grabbed her radio. "Captain, we need to divert." "Medical emergency." Marcus closed his eyes, counted to 5. "Open them." "He doesn't have time for a diversion," Marcus said, voice low but cutting through the noise. "He needs intervention now." Jennifer whirled on him. "Sir, if you don't return to your seat, I will have you restrained." The word hung in the air like smoke. Restrained. Passengers shifted. The energy in the cabin changed. Fear mixed with something uglier. Some people pulled out their phones, cameras rising like flowers toward sunlight. This was about to become a moment, the kind that lived forever on the internet. Marcus raised both hands slowly, palms out, non-threatening, compliant. He'd learned this choreography young. "I'm just trying to help," he said. Jennifer's jaw set. "I don't know who you are." "But you know who he is," Marcus thought, glancing at the dentist. Without asking for credentials, without hesitation, he walked back to his seat. Each step felt like swallowing glass. Marcus sat down, buckled his seatbelt, felt it click into place like a trap closing. Around him the plane hummed its mechanical lullaby. Engines thrumming, air vents hissing, normal sounds for an abnormal moment. His hands rested on his knees, steady, trained. These hands had held beating hearts during transplants, had sutured wounds most surgeons wouldn't touch, had signed legislation that expanded healthcare to millions. Right now they felt useless. 3 rows ahead, the dentist was doing his best. Marcus could see the man's shoulders hunched with uncertainty. Jennifer hovered nearby, radio pressed to her ear, speaking rapidly to someone who wasn't there. The unconscious passenger's wife sobbed into her hands. Marcus's phone buzzed again. Another text. He didn't look. Instead, he looked out the window. Clouds stretched below like cotton, peaceful, indifferent. The world didn't care about the small cruelties that happened in its sky. He thought about Zoe's question from last month. They'd been at the grocery store. A woman had followed them through 3 aisles, watching. When Marcus finally turned and smiled at her, she'd clutched her purse tighter and hurried away. "Daddy, why do people look at you like that?" He'd knelt down, eye level with his daughter. Sometimes people make up stories in their heads about other people. Stories that aren't true. But you're nice. You help people. "I know, sweetheart, but they don't know that yet." She'd frowned, processing. "That's not fair." "No," he'd agreed. "It's not." Now at 35,000 feet, the same unfairness pressed against his chest. Familiar, expected, still suffocating. A memory surfaced. His first day of medical school. A professor had pulled him aside after class. "You'll have to work twice as hard," the professor had said. Not unkindly, just factually. Not because you're not capable, but because they'll assume you're not. Marcus had nodded. Understood, made it his fuel. He'd worked twice as hard. Then 3 times. Built a career so undeniable that doors opened before he reached them. Or so he'd thought. Apparently, airplane aisles had different rules. 27 years ago, Marcus had been 12 years old, sitting in his mother's clinic. Not a real clinic, just a converted garage in their Detroit neighborhood, where his mother, Nurse Evelyn Reed, treated people who couldn't afford hospitals. She transformed that space into something sacred. Shelves of bandages, bottles of medicine, a single examination table with a vinyl cover that cracked in the cold. Marcus had done his homework there most afternoons, surrounded by the smell of antiseptic and hope. One evening a man stumbled through the door. Construction worker, arm mangled from a fall, blood soaking through a makeshift tourniquet. "Hospital won't see me," the man gasped. "No insurance." Evelyn had moved fast, steady hands cleaning the wound, stitching skin back together with the precision of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. Marcus had watched, frozen between fear and fascination. When it was done, the man had gripped his mother's hand. "You saved my life," Evelyn had smiled. "That's what we do. We show up." Later, after the man left, Marcus had asked her why she did this. Why work for free? Why risk everything for strangers? His mother had looked at him with those dark eyes that saw through walls. "Because the system fails people who look like us, baby. So we can't fail each other." That night Marcus decided to become a doctor. Not just any doctor. The kind who changed systems. Who made sure clinics in garages weren't necessary. Who could stand in rooms where decisions happened and make sure those decisions included everyone. He'd kept that promise. Medical school at Johns Hopkins. Residency at Massachusetts General. Chief of Surgery at 34. Surgeon General at 39. Every achievement had been armor. Every credential a shield against the doubt he knew would follow him like a shadow. But shadows existed even at altitude, apparently. Marcus blinked back to the present. The dentist was still kneeling, still fumbling. The unconscious man's color had worsened. Marcus's mother's voice echoed across the years. "We show up." But what happened when showing up wasn't enough? When being present, being qualified, being willing, none of it mattered because someone had already written your story before you spoke. He pressed his forehead against the window. Cold glass against warm skin. His daughter's face floated in his mind. Zoe, who believed her father could fix anything. Who drew pictures of him in his white coat with a stethoscope around his neck. Who told her second-grade class that her daddy was a superhero. What would he tell her about today? A passenger in seat 11B leaned toward her husband, phone tilted toward him. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Not quiet enough." Her husband squinted at the screen. His eyebrows shot up. "Is that?" The woman nodded slowly. Then her gaze lifted, scanning the cabin until it landed on Marcus. Their eyes met. Hers widened with recognition, with horror. Marcus saw it happen in real time. Understanding dawning, spreading. The woman tapped her seatmate's shoulder, showed him the phone. The information moved like a virus through the cabin, passenger to passenger, whispered syllables carrying weight. "That's the Surgeon General." Wait, the guy they wouldn't let help? Oh no, oh no. Jennifer was still focused on the unconscious man, oblivious to the shift in the cabin's atmosphere. The dentist looked up at her, helpless. "I really think we need to land," the dentist said. "I'm not equipped for this." Jennifer spoke into her radio again, requesting emergency landing clearance. Her voice shook. Behind Marcus, a man cleared his throat loudly. "Excuse me, miss." Jennifer turned, irritation flashing across her face. "Sir, I need you to remain calm." "That man you turned away?" The passenger pointed at Marcus. "He's not just a doctor. He's the Surgeon General of the United States. Words dropped into the cabin like a bomb. Jennifer's face went blank, processing, rejecting, accepting. The progression took 3 seconds that felt like 3 hours. What? The word came out small, broken. Another passenger held up her phone, screen facing outward. A news article from 3 days ago. Surgeon General Marcus Reed addresses National Medical Conference. The photo showed Marcus at a podium, American flag behind him, wearing the Surgeon General's uniform with its gold braid and insignia. The same man sitting in seat 17F. Quiet, dismissed, watching. A patient declined because someone had decided his expertise didn't match his appearance. Jennifer's hand went to her mouth. The color drained from her face like water circling a drain. "Oh, God," she breathed. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're making an emergency descent into Indianapolis. Medical personnel will meet us on the ground. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened." Marcus stood. This time no one stopped him. He moved down the aisle, each step deliberate. The dentist scrambled backward, making room. Jennifer pressed herself against the seats, eyes wide with something between shame and terror. Marcus knelt beside the unconscious man, checked his pulse, assessed his breathing, pulled down the man's eyelids to examine his pupils. "Cardiac event," Marcus said, voice clinical. "Detached. Likely myocardial infarction. He needs aspirin and oxygen." Now Jennifer fumbled with the emergency medical kit. Her hands shook so badly she dropped it. Marcus caught it before it hit the floor. He worked quickly, efficiently, aspirin administered. Oxygen mask secured. The man's wife clutched Marcus's arm, tears streaming. "Thank you," she sobbed. "Thank you," Marcus nodded. Focused on the patient. Monitored vitals. Kept him stable. Around him, cameras captured everything. The moment was already becoming viral. Already being shared. Already unstoppable. The man's pulse steadied under Marcus's care. Color returned to his lips, slow but certain. Jennifer stood frozen, phone clutched in one white-knuckled hand. The weight of what she'd done, what she'd almost caused, pressed against her like physical force. "Dr. Reed," she whispered. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know. You didn't ask." His voice was calm, surgical, each word precise. "You made an assumption. I should have listened. You should have trusted that someone offering help in an emergency might actually be qualified to give it." The dentist had retreated to his seat, face buried in his hands. Other passengers watched in silence. The cabin had transformed into a courtroom, judgment hanging thick in the recycled air. A businessman in first class called out, "This is unacceptable." "I'm reporting this to the airline," another voice joined. "We all are." Everyone saw what happened. Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. She opened her mouth, closed it. No words came. Marcus continued monitoring the patient, fingers on the man's wrist, counting heartbeats, professional, controlled. But his jaw was tight, muscle jumping beneath the skin. The plane began its descent. The seatbelt sign chimed. Passengers buckled in, but no one looked away from the scene unfolding 3 rows from the cockpit. "How is he?" The captain's voice crackled over Jennifer's radio. She couldn't speak. Marcus took the radio from her hand. "This is Dr. Marcus Reed, Surgeon General. Patient is stabilized. Pulse steady at 72. Oxygen saturation improving. He'll need immediate transport to cardiac care, but he's going to make it." A pause. Then, "Thank you, Dr. Reed. Emergency services are standing by." Marcus handed the radio back. Jennifer took it like it weighed 100 pounds. The man's wife gripped Marcus's hand. "You saved him." After she couldn't finish. "Didn't need to. I took an oath," Marcus said simply, "to do no harm. To help when help is needed." He glanced up at Jennifer. "That's all I was trying to do." Jennifer's tears spilled over. "I'm so sorry." Marcus didn't respond. He'd heard apologies before. They rarely changed anything. The plane touched down, wheels screeching against tarmac. Through the windows, emergency vehicles raced alongside them, lights flashing red and blue against the grey afternoon. The cabin remained eerily silent. No one spoke. No one moved. They all knew they'd witnessed something that would ripple far beyond this flight, a moment that would have consequences. For Jennifer, for the airline, for everyone who'd watched a qualified man be dismissed because of unspoken assumptions. Marcus stayed with his patient as the plane taxied to the gate. Steady, present, doing what he'd always done, showing up. Even when the door had been slammed in his face, Paramedics rushed aboard the moment the doors opened. Marcus briefed them quickly. Medical terminology flowing in rapid-fire precision. 56-year-old male witnessed sudden collapse, likely myocardial infarction. Administered aspirin, maintained oxygen, vital stabilizing. Pulse 74, respiration 16, oxygen saturation 92% and climbing. The lead paramedic nodded, respect clear in his eyes. Good work, Doc. They loaded the patient onto a stretcher. His wife followed, but paused to hug Marcus. Thank you for not giving up on him. The words hit harder than she probably intended. As passengers began deplaning, a suited man appeared in the aisle. Airport security, flanked by 2 police officers. Dr. Reed, the security officer asked. Marcus stood slowly. Yes, we need to speak with you about the incident on this flight. Jennifer, still standing near the galley, went pale. Several passengers immediately protested. He didn't do anything wrong. He saved that man's life. She's the one you should be questioning. The security officer raised his hand. We're just gathering information. Standard procedure for any mid-flight emergency. Marcus nodded calmly, but his mind raced. He'd been here before too. Questioned, scrutinized, asked to prove his innocence in situations where he'd done nothing but exist. A woman in seat 9C stepped forward, phone in hand. I recorded everything, from the moment he offered to help to the moment she refused. It's all here. Other passengers echoed her. A dozen phones, a dozen angles, a dozen pieces of evidence documenting rejection and redemption. The security officer's expression shifted as he absorbed the implications. We'll need copies of those recordings. Behind Marcus, Jennifer's supervisor had appeared, a stern woman in a pressed uniform with 3 gold stripes on her sleeves. Jennifer, you're suspended pending investigation. Please come with me. Jennifer's face crumpled. She looked at Marcus one last time, desperation in her eyes. Seeking what? Forgiveness? Understanding? Absolution she hadn't earned? Marcus met her gaze, held it, said nothing. The supervisor led Jennifer away, her shoulders shaking with sobs. Passengers filed past Marcus, many pausing to shake his hand, apologize, express outrage on his behalf. Their good intentions felt hollow. They'd had front-row seats to injustice, and most had stayed silent until it was safe to speak. One passenger, an elderly black woman, stopped beside him. She placed her hand over his. I'm sorry, baby, she said softly. I'm sorry you still have to go through this. Those words landed differently. Born from shared understanding, from a lifetime of similar moments. Marcus's phone exploded with notifications. News alerts, texts, calls. The videos were already online, already trending. His face, calm and composed in the clips, was being shared by millions. Surgeon General rejected. Racism at 35,000 at feet. Dr. Reed respect, his chief of staff called. Marcus, we're getting calls from every major network. The airline's stock is dropping. The White House wants a statement. What do you need? What did he need? He needed this to have never happened. He needed people to see competence before color. He needed his daughter to grow up in a world where her father wasn't treated like a threat when he tried to heal. I need to go home, Marcus said quietly. I need to see my daughter. Through the aircraft window, he could see news vans pulling up to the terminal. Cameras, reporters, the machinery of viral moments grinding into motion. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. And somewhere in America, another black doctor would board another flight, carry their credentials like armor, and wonder if it would be enough. Marcus sat in the airport terminal, alone despite the crowd. Through the windows, reporters gathered like storm clouds. Camera crews jostled for position. His phone buzzed incessantly. He'd stopped counting after notification 300. The airline had offered him their VIP lounge. Privacy, comfort, apologies, wrapped in leather chairs and complimentary champagne. He'd declined. Something about hiding felt wrong, A text from Zoe appeared. "Daddy, kids at school saw videos. Are you okay?" His heart cracked. 8 years old, and already learning that her father's competence wasn't assumed, that his helpfulness could be weaponized against him. He typed back, "I'm fine, sweetheart. Helped someone today. That's what matters, but was it?" The man had survived, yes. But those 7 minutes of refusal, minutes where cardiac tissue died, where brain cells starved for oxygen, those couldn't be undone. Marcus closed his eyes. The terminal sounds faded. In the darkness behind his eyelids, he saw his mother's face. "We show up," she'd said. He'd shown up, and been turned away. An elderly man sat down beside him. Didn't speak immediately. Just sat. Quiet solidarity in a world of noise. "I was on your flight," the man finally said. "Seat 12A. Marcus nodded but didn't open his eyes. "I didn't say anything when it happened. When she refused you." The man's voice cracked. "I'm ashamed of that. I should have spoken up." Marcus opened his eyes, looked at the stranger, saw genuine remorse etched into weathered features. "Why didn't you?" Marcus asked. Not accusatory, genuinely curious. The man was quiet for a long moment. "Fear, I guess. Of making it worse. Of saying the wrong thing, of—" He trailed off. "There's no good excuse." "No," Marcus agreed softly. "There isn't." They sat together in silence. Two men processing different versions of the same failure. One personal, one systemic. Marcus's phone buzzed. His chief of staff again. "Airline CEO wants to meet, tonight. Your choice on location." The machine was moving. Consequences assembling themselves like puzzle pieces. But Marcus felt hollow, tired. He'd fought this battle his entire life. In classrooms, hospitals, boardrooms, now airplane aisles. How many more battlefields existed? He thought of Jennifer's face, her tears, her horror at her own actions. Part of him felt satisfaction, justice. Another part just felt sad. The airline's CEO arrived at Marcus's hotel that evening, Robert Callahan. Mid-50s, grey hair, expensive suit. He brought his head of HR and a crisis management team. They filled Marcus's suite with nervous energy and leather portfolios. "Dr. Reed, on behalf of Skyward Airlines, I cannot express how deeply sorry—" Marcus raised his hand. "I don't want apologies. I want action." Callahan blinked, recalibrated. "Of course, we've already suspended the flight attendant pending investigation. We're reviewing—" "One attendant isn't the problem," Marcus interrupted. "The problem is systemic. How many other qualified passengers have been dismissed? How many emergencies have been mishandled because someone made assumptions?" The HR director shifted uncomfortably. "Our training programs are comprehensive. Are they?" Marcus leaned forward. "Because your attendant looked at me and saw a threat, not a resource. That's not a training failure. That's a bias issue." Silence settled over the room like fog. Callahan cleared his throat. "What would you recommend?" Marcus had been thinking about this for hours. Since the moment Jennifer's face had crumpled with realization, since he'd watched a system fail in real time. Mandatory implicit bias training for all customer-facing staff. Partnership with medical organizations to verify credentials quickly in emergencies. Clear protocols that don't rely on appearance-based judgments. Marcus paused. And consequences. Real ones. Not just suspensions that blow over when the news cycle moves on. The crisis manager scribbled notes furiously. "We can implement all of that," Callahan said quickly. Too quickly. The eagerness of damage control. Marcus studied him. "Will you? Or will you wait until the next viral video?" Callahan's jaw tightened. But he nodded. "We will." "You have my word. I don't want your word. I want accountability. Public commitment, timeline, oversight." Marcus pulled out his phone, open to a note he'd been drafting. Here's what meaningful change looks like. He'd learned something in his years as Surgeon General. Promises without structure were just noise. Change required architecture. As Callahan reviewed Marcus's proposals, the HR director spoke up. "What about Jennifer?" The flight attendant. What happens to her? Marcus was quiet for a moment. He thought about her tears, her horror, her future. That's your decision, he finally said. But I'll tell you this. Punishment without education changes nothing. She needs to understand what she did, why it was wrong, and how to be better. You're being very gracious, Callahan observed. I'm being practical, Marcus corrected. Destroying her doesn't fix the system that created her assumptions. Teaching her might prevent the next incident. The meeting lasted 2 hours. Contracts were drafted, commitments made. Marcus's lawyers would review everything, ensure words became action. As the airline executives filed out, Callahan, "My daughter is in medical school," he said quietly. "Black girl, brilliant, top of her class." He met Marcus's eyes. "I never thought about what she'd face after graduation." "After watching those videos, I'm thinking about it now," Marcus nodded. "Good, then maybe something changes." After they left, Marcus sat alone in his suite, opened his laptop. The videos had 30 million views across platforms. Comment sections overflowed with rage, support, similar stories. One comment caught his eye. "I'm a black teacher. Security followed me through my own school on my first day. I was wearing my ID badge." Another, "Latina lawyer here. Judge asked if I was the court translator." In my own case, another, "Asian engineer. Client asked to speak to someone more senior. I'm the department head." The stories cascaded endlessly. A river of competence questioned. Expertise doubted. Authority challenged. Marcus clicked on a news article. The passenger he'd saved, James Morrison, had given an interview from his hospital bed. "Dr. Reed saved my life. And that flight attendant almost took it away because of—" Morrison's voice broke. "Because she couldn't see past her own prejudice. I'm alive because he refused to give up. Even after being humiliated." Marcus closed the laptop. Exhaustion pressed against his bones. His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something made him answer. "Dr. Reed, this is Jennifer. From the flight." His breath caught. Marcus said nothing for 3 long seconds, processing, deciding. "How did you get this number?" he finally asked. I shouldn't have called. I'm sorry. Jennifer's voice was raw, scraped hollow by tears. "I've been watching the videos, reading the comments, seeing what I did. Oh God, Dr. Reed, I almost killed that man because I didn't believe you." Marcus walked to the window, looked out at the city lights below. "Why are you calling me?" "Because I need you to understand I'm not a bad person. I didn't mean. I never thought I was someone who would—" She couldn't finish the sentence. Someone who would what? Marcus's voice was gentle but unyielding. "Discriminate. Make assumptions based on appearance. Let bias override common sense." "Yes, all of that." "I'm horrified. I'm so ashamed." "Good," Marcus said. "You should be." A sharp intake of breath on the other end. Then silence. Marcus continued. "But shame alone doesn't fix anything, Jennifer. Understanding does. Change does. I need you to answer something honestly. When you looked at me, what did you see?" "I don't know. You weren't wearing a suit. You didn't look like a doctor. You looked—" She stopped. "I looked black," Marcus finished for her. "And in your mind that didn't match doctor." "I didn't think that consciously, and that's the problem." "You didn't think. You reacted, based on programming you didn't know you had." Marcus exhaled slowly. "Do you know what implicit bias is?" "I've heard of it. It's the unconscious attitudes and stereotypes that affect our understanding, actions, and decisions. Everyone has them. The question is whether we acknowledge them and work to counter them." Jennifer was crying now. Soft, broken sounds through the phone. "I'm going to lose my job," she whispered. "My career is over. My family. They're getting threats. People found our address. My mom is scared to leave the house." Marcus felt a pang of sympathy he didn't want to feel. He thought of his own family, the threats they'd received over the years, the price of being visible while black in America. "What happened to you is wrong," Marcus said. Threats and doxing are wrong. I don't condone that. But Jennifer, you need to understand, what happened to me happens every day, to thousands of people who look like me. The difference is mine was caught on camera. Mine went viral. Mine had consequences, I know. I'm starting to understand. I'm reading stories. So many stories. Then don't waste this moment, Marcus said firmly. Don't just apologize and disappear. Learn, grow, become someone who speaks up when she sees this happening to others. That's how you make amends. Not with words, with action. Will you? Can you ever forgive me? Marcus closed his eyes, thought about forgiveness, about grace, about whether either was his to give or withhold. That's not the right question, he said finally. The question is whether you can forgive yourself enough to do better, whether you can sit with your discomfort and let it teach you something. A press conference had been scheduled for the next morning. National news. The airline would present their new policies. Marcus would speak. The world would watch. Are you going to be at the press conference tomorrow? Jennifer asked. Yes, I want to be there. I want to apologize publicly. To you, to everyone. Marcus hesitated. Part of him wanted to say no, to let her face the consequences alone. But another part, the part his mother had cultivated, knew that healing required more than punishment. Talk to the airline, he said. If they allow it, and if you're genuine, then yes. But Jennifer, don't perform. Don't make it about your redemption. Make it about truth. I will. I promise. After she hung up, Marcus stood at the window for a long time. Below, the city moved through its night rhythms. People living lives, carrying biases, making assumptions, sometimes learning. His phone buzzed. A text from the elderly man from the airport. I spoke to my grandson tonight. About silence. About complicity. Thank you for that conversation. For it mattered, small ripples, expanding outward. Maybe that was how change happened. Not all at once, but in moments of discomfort, transformed into growth. The press conference room hummed with energy. Cameras lined the back wall. Reporters filled every seat. Marcus sat at the long table, flanked by airline executives and his legal team. The lights were hot, bright, revealing. Robert Callahan spoke first, outlining new policies. Training programs, oversight committees, partnership with medical boards. The words sounded good. Time would tell if they translated to action. Then it was Marcus's turn. He stood, adjusted the microphone, looked out at the sea of faces. 3 days ago I tried to help a dying man, he began. I was refused. Not because I wasn't qualified, not because I couldn't help, but because someone looked at me and decided I didn't belong in the role I was offering to fill. The room was silent, rapt. This isn't a unique story. It's a common one. Black doctors questioned in hospitals. Latino teachers mistaken for janitors. Asian executives asked to fetch coffee. We carry credentials, degrees, experience, and still we're asked to prove we belong in spaces where others are simply believed. Marcus paused. Let the words settle. I don't share this for sympathy. I share it because silence protects the status quo. And the status quo is failing us. He gestured to the airline executives. These policies are a start, but real change requires all of us. It requires passengers who speak up when they see bias. It requires colleagues who challenge assumptions. It requires all of us to ask ourselves, who do I believe automatically? Who do I question? And why? A reporter raised her hand. Dr. Reed, do you think the flight attendant should be fired? Marcus had been expecting this question. Had thought carefully about his answer. I think she should face consequences proportional to her actions, but I also think she should be given an opportunity to learn and grow. Destroying her doesn't fix the system. Teaching her might prevent future harm. Another reporter. Some are calling this a landmark case of workplace discrimination. Will you pursue legal action? My focus is on systemic change, not individual retribution. The airline has committed to meaningful reform. If they follow through, that's more valuable than any lawsuit. Movement at the back of the room. Jennifer entered, escorted by the HR director. She looked small, scared, determined. The room erupted with questions. Callahan raised his hand for silence. "Ms. Chen has asked to speak," he said. "We're allowing her to make a brief statement." Jennifer approached the microphone. Her hands shook. She looked at Marcus, eyes red-rimmed but clear. "Dr. Reed, I owe you an apology. Not a private one. A public one." Her voice trembled but held. "I let my unconscious bias override my training, my common sense, and my basic human decency. I looked at you and made assumptions. Those assumptions almost cost a man his life." She wiped her eyes, continued. "I can't undo what I did. I can't give back those 7 minutes where you should have been helping Mr. Morrison. But I can promise that I will spend the rest of my life learning from this, fighting against the biases I didn't know I carried, and speaking up when I see others making the same mistakes." Marcus stood, walked around the table, extended his hand. Jennifer stared at it, then took it. The handshake was brief, professional but meaningful. "I will," she whispered. That evening, Marcus flew home to D.C. The flight was quiet, peaceful, a different airline. Zoe was waiting at the airport with his wife Rachel. His daughter ran to him, arms outstretched. He caught her, lifted her, held her close. "You helped him, Daddy," Zoe said into his shoulder. "Even when they said no, you didn't give up." "That's right, sweetheart. We don't give up. Because we show up?" Marcus smiled, his mother's words echoing through generations. "Yes, baby. Because we show up." Rachel hugged him tight. "I'm proud of you for how you handled all of it." They drove home through familiar streets. Marcus looked out the window at the city he'd sworn to serve, thought about James Morrison recovering in a hospital, about Jennifer Chen facing her own reckoning, about millions of people who'd watched those videos and seen their own stories reflected back. On his phone, a new email waited. From the White House. Dr. Reed, the President would like to discuss expanding bias training across federal agencies. Your consultation would be invaluable. Small ripples, expanding outward. Maybe change was possible after all. 3 months later, Marcus received a letter. No return address. Just his name, carefully handwritten on ivory paper. Inside, a single sheet. Also handwritten. The script was shaky, like the writer had started and stopped many times. "Dr. Reed, you don't know me, but you saved my husband's life. I'm James Morrison's wife, the woman who held your arm and cried while you worked. I've been trying to find the right words to thank you, for not giving up, for staying calm when others panicked, for being exactly who you are, even when someone tried to diminish that. James is home now, recovered. He plays with our grandchildren and tends his garden, and lives a life he almost lost because of you, but also because you refused to let someone else's blindness define your purpose. That's the real gift you gave us, not just medical care, but a lesson in dignity, in persistence, in showing up, even when the door is closed. Thank you, from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you for being who you are." Helen Morrison. Marcus set the letter down, looked out his office window at the city below. Competence should not require proving. Expertise should not require defending. Help should not require convincing. But until the world caught up to what should be, people like him would keep showing up, keep offering their hands, keep being excellent, even when excellence wasn't assumed. His mother had been right. The system failed people who looked like them, so they couldn't fail each other. Marcus picked up his phone, called his daughter. "Hey, Daddy." Zoe's voice was bright. "Hey, sweetheart. What did you learn in school today?" "We talked about heroes. Mrs. Peterson said heroes are people who help even when it's hard." Marcus smiled. "That's right. So you're a hero, Daddy." He thought about that word, hero. It felt too big, too simple. What he was, what they all were, was human, flawed, persistent, committed to showing up. "We're all heroes when we choose to be," Marcus said. "When we help, when we speak up, when we refuse to let fear or bias stop us from doing what's right." After they hung up, Marcus returned to his work. A nation's health to oversee, policies to shape, lives to impact. Outside his window, planes crossed the sky. Tiny metal birds carrying people and stories and moments of choice. Somewhere up there, maybe a doctor would board a flight. Maybe they'd be questioned. Maybe they'd be believed. And if they weren't, if someone looked at them and saw only assumptions, maybe someone would remember, would speak up, would say, listen to them, trust them, let them help. That was how change happened. Not all at once, but person by person, flight by flight, choice by choice. Marcus Reed had taken an oath to do no harm, to heal when healing was needed. He'd kept that oath at 35,000 feet, and he'd keep it on the ground, because some promises were worth fighting for. Some battles were worth the scars, and some doors once opened could never quite close the same.